Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of PostBurnout.com interviews, we talk with the legendary Massachusetts musician Dean Fisher. Dean, who is best known for his work with Juliana Hatfield and his wife Tanya Donelly of Throwing Muses, The Breeders and Belly fame, has recently started a new project with the classical vocalist Gabriella Lawrence. The project is called TINKERTOWN and their debut album American Gothic was released today. Dean tells us about TINKERTOWN, how it differs from any project that he's been in, making the album, his career and background, and so much more.
Hello.
Hi Dean, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's very nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Hold on, let me hook up my AirPods.
Yep.
Are we in? It's not working. Hold on. So, you're in Dublin?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is this not? This is. Sorry about that. I don't know why. It says it is. Huh. I don't get it. Oh well. I'll go without them, I guess.
Yeah, I can hear you fine if as long as you can hear me okay.
Yeah, fine. Very good.
Perfect. Dude, it's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, you.
Yeah, I was doing like in prep for the interview, I was doing some research and I found you quite elusive actually. It was kind of difficult to nail down kind of your background a little bit. I was wondering like, obviously you've been very prolific. You've been working as both a musician and on the technical side of other people's music for a long, long time now. I was wondering what's kind of your background into music? What kind of got you started and when did you kind of begin either playing in bands or writing your own music?
Yeah, I mean, my whole life, I guess, I've just like that's what I've known I wanted to do. Like since I was little, I wanted to play drums, and so it just like it was back in the days when they were really good. My school system had excellent music programs, so I got all that sort of stuff through there, and then during that time, I was also just like playing with friends too, just like. I knew it was something I wanted to do. I didn't know how much of it I was going to be able to do, but yeah, forever I've been doing that. So,
What was your first instrument that you began with?
it was, I guess, violin lessons. They were sort of
Okay.
like this. They were trying to, and I never got anywhere with that. But it was, but yeah. So drums was what I wanted to play, and they really were trying to steer us away from it at school. I'm not sure why. They just think that oh, everyone probably wants to play drums, but it took me. I had to really be kind of persistent to get it. Like they didn't give lessons through the school. So, but that was yeah. So I guess when I was about 12, 11, 12, something like that, I started taking drum lessons. Just had a practice pad for a long time, then got a snare drum, sort of like that, kind of gradually acquiring things. So
And then you grew up in Massachusetts. I'm not sure exactly which city. Am I correct in saying that?
yeah, it's Duxbury, Massachusetts. I grew up there. Also, where Juliana Hatfield grew up. I went to school with her.
Yeah. So I was wondering, like, were you kind of into the kind of the college radio scene, college rock music scene that was happening in Massachusetts at that time? Obviously, I mean, a lot of big acts who were kind of later influenced the kind of alternative rock scene and also the indie rock scene as well. Were you into that kind of music at that time, or was that something that
I
you kind of discovered later?
Yeah, I really wasn't interested in it because we even when I was just like before I said like 14, 15, we were
Hmm.
like taking the bus into Boston to like go to hardcore shows and
Yeah.
things like that. And I would like, to go to Newbury Comics was sort of like the underground indie import place to get like. So I mean, that's where I learned about like Boston bands, Mission of Burma and things. But it was just like an exciting time for like very interested in things that were happening in. Well, I mean, of course, like Pretenders and Ramones, but so
Mhm.
many things clash and just like it was very exciting. Early '80s, like learning about all this new music. Yeah, Mission of Burma from Boston. I don't know if you know them, but they're
Yep, of
just
course, yep.
that was yeah, of course, yeah. So yeah, very influential band. So I just like we'd buy these records. It was just kind of you know like just seemed like a different world, than what I was used to. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Boston had like, one of the strongest like hardcore scenes at the time. So that was kind of what you were
Yeah,
into at the time then. What's that
right.
scene?
Yeah, even if, well, I mean, I was interested in it, but I was just also, I weighed like 105 pounds. So, like, when I'd go to these shows, so I wasn't really very threatening to anybody.
Yeah. You stood in the back.
Yeah, exactly. You guys look like you got a handle on this. You're doing fine. But yeah, it was great because there were a lot of, like this place, the Channel in
Hmm.
Boston down, but it's so like, okay, you know what? Yeah. They, would see like Circle Jerks and all these bands would come through, Dead
Yep.
Kennedys and Black Flag. So it was pretty wild. So
And what was that other venue? The Rat? Did you ever go there?
yeah, sure. I played there a bunch of times. I do miss that place. There was a lot of great places when I first got to Boston in '86. That were still a lot of those great clubs were still going strong. So it was another like I don't know 5 years. I'm not sure how long they lasted after that, but yep, Bunratty's, the Channel, yeah, places like that.
And then when it came to actually playing with Juliana, as you mentioned, you guys went to school together. I was wondering, like, when you were asked to kind of work with her, were you familiar with her work with the Blake Babies? Did you know about the band? Had you seen them?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so yeah, that was part of like we both like went to school in Boston. So I was going to school when she had already been in Boston for a year and had started Blake Babies.
Mhm.
But yeah, I knew her, and we knew each other. We were both playing in high school bands, and so we've always been in touch. And we were actually roommates at the time that she was in Blake Babies too. So
Okay.
yeah, but that was a very exciting time. Lemonheads and Blake Babies were just getting started, and but I was going to school at that time. So
And you were in a band at this time, if I'm correct, Toad Pucker, is that correct?
yeah, how would you find out about that?
Like I said, I did my research.
Okay, yeah. So Thud
um,
Parker, yeah, that was right. Kind of like I guess, very influenced by Nirvana and Mudhoney and things like that. So it was kind of like grungy, grungy rock.
and you play bass in that band, so I was wondering how did you make the kind of transition to bass, which obviously you'd end up playing with Juliana.
Yeah, interesting because like all through my childhood, I was a drummer, and I went to Berkeley for a year and a half playing drums. So it was sort of bass was sort of a hobby, and Thud Pucker was very sort of you know n- not very professional level of playing. So it was like a fun thing to do. Like we had my friend Peter was playing drums, and so it was just sort of like an experiment for me doing that. But I wasn't really a great bass player. Maybe never will. Maybe never will be. But I didn't really get like into shape until Juliana hired me. So that was I kind of just sort of backed into that. She was just looking for a band, and so.
And then the other thing I was interested in too, I mean, like, obviously you've done a lot of work with Juliana as well as Tanya Donnelly, who is your wife. I was wondering too, you've also done a lot of technical work too. You've worked as a producer, as an engineer, as a mixer. I was wondering how did you kind of get into that?
Well, I just to be clear though, there's another Gene Fisher who's also
Oh,
worked on
okay, so is
a bunch of
information
hip
getting
hop
mixed?
things. So the Bone Thugs and Harmony, all of that, that's not me, but it makes a massive resume, doesn't it?
Okay, so
I, I'm very happy for it. It looks incredible. No, that's not me though. I've been given. producer credit on some things, but it's all things that we've done like with Tanya. So like when we were just kind of doing things on our own. So I've been done all of her solo albums, but yeah, that other guy's not me. So
I
I'm not
apologize for my
mentioning.
folly.
No, that's not your folly. That's like that's all. It's all blended in there. Even I have to go through and say like, no, that one's not me,
Hey, no,
because
it's good to get this stuff cleared on the record,
it's true, yeah. But no, yeah, there's another one. I've never met him. I don't know who he is, but
And then obviously, I mean, working with Tanya took up, most of your career. We should say Tanya, from Throwing Muses, and Belly, as well as one of the founding members of Breeders, just for the uninitiated, I guess. I know you know this. Um, but, obviously, that was most of your career, and then actually there was a brief revival of the Juliana Hatfield tree. You guys released a record in 2015, I believe, and after that came your next project, Ghosts and Shadows. I was wondering, how did that project kind of come about? What was the impetus for that one?
well, that one was just sort of like a very local thing, when just around town, sort of just like friends that we had, like people just playing locally, just for fun. When we been playing out in the area, but haven't really like reached out beyond Boston or try. Or we've put out like, two CDs. There are two albums of Ghosts and Shadows, and so we still do it. Just it's a very fun thing to do. But yeah, and I've played with Juliana too. Have done some tours. We last tour we did was in 2020, so we've done a few. We went over to England, which was great. I haven't been there in a long time. I don't know if that might have been 2019, but and then we're doing some more touring this fall with
Okay.
opening for Soul Asylum, and we were also
Yes.
doing a couple of weeks of our own shows. So that's just sort of like it's just kind of juggling back and forth. That's kind of there's a lot of people in Boston our age that are still just making music, and so it's still like this big community
Yeah.
that just hasn't broken up. So.
Do you find actually it attracts younger people? I mean, do you find that the age range kind of varies, or are you kind of playing to the same people?
Yeah, I feel like we are playing to the same people. Sometimes, those things happen, but mainly it is still same people coming out. But yeah, every once in a while we see like there's younger people that are interested, about that era, and so that's great too.
Yeah, I think it is something that's like really persistent, and do you find like when like kind of playing the music from say like 30 years ago at this point, I mean, do you find for you, is it kind of, is it monotonous, is it kind of repetitive, or is it something that still kind of brings you pleasure to do?
I still enjoy doing it. It is, it's nostalgic. It's also just kind of muscle memory for a
Hmm.
lot of it. So we just are used to it. I feel like there's always um, something new to mine from it. Somehow we could play a little different. I feel like we're kind of in some ways better players than we were then, and so I don't know. It's still fun to do, and it's fun to have just to see people that still enjoy it. That energizes it as well. So, well, this is going to be a long one, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
It's as long as we've been out in a long time, so this is going to be like 6 weeks. So,
And obviously, I mean,
with
Soul Asylum again is another kind of like the longevity of these kind of like projects. I mean, like the fact that they're still interested and they're still playing like such kind of major venues, I think
yeah,
is like it is really, I don't know, it's a sign of the quality of the music, and kind of I don't know if you find it kind of I don't know, kind of confirming, or whatever. I don't know how to phrase it exactly, but kind
yeah.
of like
Affirm.
it's validating in a way, I guess.
Hmm. It is nice. Yeah, that's still important to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got it wasn't that ephemeral. So
Yeah.
I just
That's
felt.
always a good thing. I also want to ask, so with Ghosts and Shadows, is that where you met Gabriella, who's now
Yeah,
in Tinkertown? Yeah, her
good done. That's
background, I
right.
believe, was in classical music, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so she was sort of doing this for fun. I mean, she was actually, living in New York, managing an orchestra of all things, and then moved here to start a family. But yeah, she's oh, been into Blondie and uh, Brian Eno, a lot of stuff from the 70s. We don't really actually have a lot of crossover music that we like, that we are as far as our taste in
Hmm.
music. But yeah, so she was singing for that band. They asked me, I always like to, if anyone asks me to play, I like to say yes if I can,
Hmm.
if I can. So it's like, so I did, and we, still it's kind of almost more of like a friend group, and and band second, but we still always play. That's like the most regular playing I do is getting together with those guys. That is the and I play drums in that band. So
Do you actually find, because you were mentioned there was a bit of contrast in terms of the kind of music you guys listen to. Do you think that can be beneficial from a songwriting perspective to have people who have kind of a plethora and sometimes contrasting tastes, or is it a hindrance?
I feel like it's just it doesn't really, I guess it doesn't enter into it until we start to talk about things, because we just found out that wherever she came from and wherever I came from, we really click as writing partners, and
Hmm.
so we're just going with that, and it's just we have that language in common at least. And then as soon as we start to talk about music, because she missed the 90s entirely
Yeah.
as far as the indie rock thing, and also it's just kind of a funny thing in a way. But yeah, so she's got more like classical training, but she does a mean Debbie Harry impersonation, and we use that too. So we do some Blondie covers. So
And then, what was the kind of impetus then for Tinkertown kind of beginning? Because yeah, I was listening to the American Gothic album, which is coming out at the end of the week, and yeah, I mean, I really loved how kind of like how like kind of divorced it was from genre. It seemed very I don't know, it seemed kind of like the DPK kind of mentions, like, the varying influences, kind of, going from kind of like anywhere from like folk music and to kind of modern rock and kind of everywhere in between. Like, I really feel like when you listen to the record, I mean, each song isn't indicative of what's going to come next. In fact, I wrote down like one transition in the album. It was from the title track American Gothic to Poor Little Head Full of Crazy. That just really sounded like, you're almost listening to a different act. Was that a
right.
conscious effort, or was that just kind of the music you guys made?
Well, I think that sort of answers the question of like where this project came from, because I'd had those friends, the band members. I played with them forever. Joe McMahon on bass has played with Tanya since I think This Hungry Life was the first one. Russell Chudnovsky's been playing with us, and Elizabeth Steen. Yeah, Russell's been with us for I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years we've been playing with him, with Tanya, and then also with Juliana. Elizabeth Steen has played with Juliana, and was in Tanya's very first solo touring band. So these are friends that I've had forever, and I've always really appreciated their love of music, the way that they can play rock, like, and they're real rock musicians, and they can play jazz gigs, trad gigs, folk. Elizabeth plays accordion, and it's just all naturally a part of who they are. So that's always impressed me, and so once Gabriella and I started writing together, and she's such an open spirit musically and personally, that it was kind of like the final piece of the puzzle. And it's like I didn't really even start to write this stuff until we got together, and that's when this kind of, I guess I've had this in the back of my mind to do this for a long time because of all of those guys. But yeah, it's just the whole record was made with just the same five people, even though it's all over the place. And so it's also just the way I like to write songs, is to serve the song,
Mhm.
whatever type of song it is. I want to make it the best kind of, do use whatever instruments that it wants and take it wherever it wants to go, and don't try to like worry about if is this all the same genre or not. So
Yeah, one thing I wonder about what you're kind of saying is that obviously, I mean, you've been in the music industry for a long time now, and I mean, you've obviously observed, I imagine, like a lot of changes as we all have. Yeah, I was wondering, do you find like now, because like when like you were I guess starting, I mean, like a lot of dictation would have been from the record labels and A&R and stuff who kind of wanted a specific genre, specific style, specific marketing. Do you find now, like in the era where people are kind of more free to upload stuff to the internet, and as well as people have kind of have access to pretty much the history of recorded music on their phone, and people are probably a little more adaptive to a variety of music rather than just like buying CDs of a single genre that they already know they like. Do you find Tinkertown can kind of like exist now? And do you think it could have existed, 30 years ago?
I really feel like this is a better time for that. Like there was, especially when there are, like you're saying, with record labels involved and they're trying to market and things like that. So I really feel like because of the internet, time periods have been washed together, and I hear so much new music from made by younger artists, and there's so much jazz and blues and things mixed all together. I think it's much more of a natural thing. So for me, it's kind of a dream come true, this this atmosphere of that. So I'm very, yeah, that's, I do feel like it's more of an open time, and I just feel not encumbered by any kind of pressure to do anything. So it is freeing for sure.
I guess one final thing I wanted to ask was the single that you chose to kind of introduce the band with is the opening track on the album Red Eyes. I was wondering, as we were mentioning, there's so many kind of differing sounds and so many different kind of genres that it could perhaps be difficult to select one that as like an introduction to the band, as an introduction to the sound. I was wondering, why did you choose Red Eyes?
Right. Yeah, it is tough because that, it's like if you try to look at, well, if we put out Poor Little Head Full of Crazy, people might be very confused about who we are if they, listen to the rest of it.
Sure.
So, but I just thought that one, there's something about it. I liked it as the first song on the album, and I just feel like it's like a nice invocation, it just is sort of like a welcoming track, and I think it covers a lot of the dynamics that, you know, um, that's a good way to set up the album, I think, to show that it's going to come down and go, it's going to get loud, get quiet, it's I just like it as a first step
Yeah. No,
for
and
the project.
no,
What?
and no, sorry, I talked over you. I apologize.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks very much for your time, Dean. I just wanted to ask one final thing, which is what do you kind of have planned for the future of the project? Is it something that you're thinking about long term, or are you just kind of like letting it go, like letting it happen as it goes, and just seeing what kind of happens with it?
right. When I was making American Gothic, I was thinking of only like I'm going to put everything I have into this one album, and that's going to be it, possibly, potentially. Um, and then once that was finished, I decided, I've started writing again right away. And I started digging up some things that I wrote in the 90s that I really liked that never really got formed. And so, but I feel like now is the time. So I feel like I have at least one more in me that one more album that I want to put everything I have into as well. So, and then we'll see what happens after that. But we're not going to play very often. We're playing like every 6 months now. We have like a December show lined up because I don't have much. I'm going to be busy all through the fall playing with Juliana, and so Yeah, so that's what's next with it. Still, I've actually started recording already. So
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
Well, thanks for your time, and I've really
All right,
enjoyed
thank
talking
you.
with you. And best of luck with the record.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, soon. See you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.